Hello everyone, this is a one controller port quick play of Metroid Prime Federation Force for Nintendo 3DS. Just as a heads up, this is the first 3DS game we're doing here. This is not a direct capture, so I don't have a 3DS is a little hard to capture right now. So there may be some performance issues, quality issues with the footage, things like that. That's not representative of the game. If I do notice any kind of slowdown in game, I can see the game running just fine on my side, so I can let you know if there's anything I at least noticed being problematic. But otherwise, just keep in mind that the footage here may not be accurate to what you see when you're playing this game on actual Nintendo 3DS. Metroid Prime Federation Force is kind of a divisive game, mainly for when it came out, I feel like. This is basically a co-op shooter on the Nintendo 3DS, although we'll only be looking at a solo campaign. It's for the most part pretty straightforward. Let me see what missions we're gonna do here. I think we're just gonna start the first mission initially. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward, but there are some Metroid Prime like elements to it. So go ahead and go into the customization here. So because it is a multiplayer game, you can kind of customize your robot suit. You're these little people that pilot these mechs that kind of look like Samus in some ways, or they kind of look like the soldiers in, I think it's Metroid Prime 2. It's kind of what they look like. But in terms of cosmetic, you can get paint jobs. Honestly, these most of the time, never really look that different, but it's something, I guess. You can use an amiibo, although I don't have any amiibos that give anything specific. So you can change your voice, you can change some of the messages. They're all preset messages. And then you have also these things called mod chips, which basically are like enhancements to your character. So you can equip 3 mod chips at once, and so they have different stats. Like this one, weapon overall, has a 20% bonus to all weapon damage. Capacity boost will let you carry more weapons, which we'll see that in a little bit. And then in this case, there's a 30% chance that if I use some kind of like a missile, it won't actually consume that missile. So there's some customization options here for your mech. And then kind of the penalty for death is that those mods have a chance of breaking. So you have to collect new ones. So they're not permanent upgrades that you have. So let's see here. Although I actually don't know how this is going to handle. I know there's like a... Okay, here we go. So this is basically like a loadout screen, although apparently we're going, because this is the first mission of this tutorial. Essentially, on the right there, you see there's like on the bottom screen on the right, there's like a bar. The black space there is essentially the amount of stuff I can carry. So in this case, each weapon is a different weight, and because this is the first level and I already have played through this game and beaten it, I can carry everything, but usually you have to kind of like pick and choose certain items. And when you're in multiplayer, you all pull from the same resources here, so you gotta have to be like, oh, I have like a weapon that increases elemental damage, so the person who is has that boost would take all kind of the elemental shots and things like that. When you're playing without other players, you also get the option to bring these little backpack things. Essentially what these are little companions that fly behind you and shoot too. I haven't done this with more than one before. Maybe we'll check that out on another mission, but the first one, let's just keep one for now. Alright, just go ahead and ready up. I'll say, we got a little like story there at the start. The story in this game absolutely does not matter. If anything, it just feels like, Samus did this, now go do the cleanup work. It feels like it relies way too much on Samus in some ways. I forget if I mentioned this at the start, but this game kind of launched in like a peculiar time where the Metroid didn't really have a lot of content around it. And Nintendo had recently delisted some like Metroid Prime 2 fan remake that had happened. And so people were kind of upset about the Metroid franchise in general, and when they announced this like spin-off co-op shooter kind of thing, people were not particularly happy. It's been a little bit since I played this, so it might take a little time for me to get used to this again. There's kind of 2 ways you can play this. You can either do like old school Nintendo DS shooter style, where you have your stylus on the screen, although I just touched the screen and I put a marker apparently. A stylus on the screen to kind of aim. or actually, can you do that? I don't remember what it is. There's a couple of control options. I do know that. Maybe it's gyro aiming is what it is for this game, but I don't use that. I use the C stick on the Nintendo 3DS, which the C stick is kind of nice trash garbage. So it's not a great way to play this game. But moving a portable around using gyro controls is also not a particularly great way to play this game either. So it's kind of a... I feel like this is a game where there's no right control style. It's just kind of what you end up liking. But it's not... It's a bit cumbersome to play. This is like a little chamber that holds mod chips. So you basically collect mod chips. You don't know what they are until the actual end of the mission. There's a lot of like little secret places right there that you'll kind of look for. So like right over here, we can see the... there's like this little wall here, and so because I have fire bullets, I can melt it, and I get even more mod chips. So this is up to 4 players. I'm not sure how the scaling works, but I will say, in terms of like how you interact with each other as players, I'd say most of the time it doesn't really matter. Usually, how the game is built is in a way so only one player really has to be able to, you know, complete things. There's a couple of missions where they like go out of their way to you know, try to force you to cooperate, but it feels kind of shallow for the most part. So oop, my little drone started shooting. I wanted to show you guys that if you look on the right side of the screen there, when I kill these enemies, there's basically like a point counter. So at the top right, you see I have 161 points right now. And then so how you kill enemies in this game actually matters quite a bit, because you'll get a certain amount of points for how you kill them. So in the case of like if you just like kind of shoot them like this, I don't think you get any points, or you get like a minimal number of points. But then if you do a charge shot and shoot them with a complete charge shot and kill them that way, you get a like 100 points for doing that. And then if you do a headshot, you get a increased bonus. And then all these like other weapons here and stuff, like the health kits, if you heal somebody, you get bonuses, missiles, and then some of them have like additional bonuses in addition to just like shooting somebody. So like there's an ice element we might see later where you can like freeze an enemy, and if your teammate shatters the enemy with a missile, you get a point bonus. So there's a lot of like cooperative elements in terms of the point system. But in terms of the main objectives, I think for the most part, there's not a lot going on. So it really comes down to earning points. Points really just... there's a buggy in there. Points really just... I haven't paid attention to anything that's happening right now, so I'm hoping I'm remembering where to go. But the point system basically lets you unlock medals, and those medals, as you gain more, give you more like space in your inventory and things like that. As you build up those medals. So eventually, you know, I assume if you get all the medals in the game, you'll max out your inventory space. I don't recall if you get any other kind of bonuses from the medals. But, you know, I wouldn't stress about it if you don't feel like doing the medal part of the game. So, so that door is on a timer right now. Sorry, I didn't pay too much attention to what was going on there. So the door is on a timer. It seems like it's pretty generous. So I think probably what I need to do is go across this cable there and then just drop down. These boxes here, and we'll come back here, but when you blow them up, there's like items and stuff in there. But you're still limited by your weight capacity, so you can only carry as much as your inventory allows you to, basically. So at this time, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to get those boxes. So let me see. Can I drop here? No, I don't think so. So I just gotta go. Although, is there beetles? Yeah. So yeah, I got blasted ×2 because I charged up and shot them. Okay. In multiplayer, this is kind of how they segment off the levels. You basically all have to stand on the buttons, and then that opens this door. And typically the door closes behind you, although I think there are cases where it doesn't. Alright. Got another secret thingy here. I don't think we'll look at it today, but there are some boss battles in this game. I'd say they're pretty kind of mellow overall. There's not a lot going on with them. I think this game in general, there's just like not a lot going on with it. That doesn't mean it's bad though. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, but it is pretty much just kind of your standard fare shooter with some like Metroid elements and some resource management. And it's like just some lore books. It is like interesting. Like I'm sitting here thinking like on paper that sounds like it should be really good. But maybe just the execution doesn't feel particularly amazing. Unfortunately, with these, with how I'm capturing this, well, that didn't work out. I should have used my missiles probably. That would have got me points without taking damage too. There we go. You have like a little jetpack, so you got to kind of figure out these like platforming puzzles a little bit. But again, pretty minor stuff. But yeah, it's just like, it's not a bad game for sure, but it definitely feels like one that relies heavily on, you know, just having fun with your friends to really get into it. If you're just going to play this game single player, I really don't know if I could strongly recommend it unless you're like a really passionate, you know, Metroid fan who just wants to absorb everything. But I assume at this point you've kind of played all this. But, you know, considering how much hate this game got just for, like, the context of when it came out, because there weren't any other Metroid games, and people were like, oh, no, I want a real Metroid game. It definitely is better than I think some people would leave you to believe. It's one of those cases where people get passionate about it on the internet because of reasons, and then the game kind of suffers because of it, because, you know, people are unhappy about some other thing happening. Mighty Number 9 maybe being the best case scenario, or best example, where it's like, oh, this Kickstarter campaign went awful, but, you know, the game itself is, in my opinion, fine. But, you know, I know people feel differently about that, but we won't get into that. This is not Metroid Prime number 9. It is just Metroid Prime Federation Force. I'm not a huge Metroid fan, I will say. I've played the original Metroid Prime, and I've played, oh no, it's just a black store. Yeah. I've played the original Metroid Prime. I've also... Oh, there's a item in there. As well as Metroid Prime First Hunt, I think. Not First Hunt. Well, I did play First Hunt, but that's like the tech demo for Metroid Prime Hunters. So I played that, and then Metroid Prime Hunters I played through. And that's kind of it. I have not played through any of the 2D Metroid games, so I really can't speak too much to, you know, how this compares. I'm going to guess people... Considering the level of passion for Metroid Prime, or the Metroid series out there, I'm gonna guess this game probably doesn't really compare to those very well. But you know, again, I don't think it's a bad game. I think this is technically a boss fight here. Oh, yep. I generally rely on the charge shots, but really, we should be using some of these weapons. So let me go ahead and I'll try to use some of these weapons real quick. With the C-stick, basically when you lock onto enemy, you have the option to kind of sit here and aim around. With gyro controls, it's very similar, where basically you can lock onto enemy and then use the gyro controls to kind of move the system around. The problem with the gyro controls, I really find, is that, you know, this being a portable system, you're moving your screen around when it happens, so it's not like, let's use our super missile or whatever. So it's not like, you know, you have a steady aim on screen. But I definitely had a friend who played through it that way, and it was perfectly fine. I did find the C-stick to be not very useful in the final boss of the game. The final boss really required me to go out of my way to use a different control scheme. I used the gyro control scheme because it had very specific aiming that you're doing. Where the rest of the game, I think you generally can get by. But I don't think there's like one good control option for this game. I kind of feel like on the Wii U it would have been great, because like I'm of the mind that like Splatoon's motion controls are perfectly fine. I know some people hate them. So that would have probably been a good fit, because at that point you can move the controller with the gyro controls, and then you know, kind of aim around that way. But you know, moving the entire system, including the screen around, is a little much for me at least. Excellent work, Marine. So this is kind of the structure of every mission, is that you kind of do your objective while you're there, and then you got to go extract. Usually on the way back, stuff happens. So, you know, it's not necessarily a bad idea to stock up on some stuff if you can. In terms of how this compares to other shooters on the platform, I'm trying to think if I've played other shooters on the 3DS. I did briefly play, I think it was called Iron Storm or something like that, or Iron Fall. It was like a Gears of War clone for Nintendo 3DS. I remember that game also having issues with the C-Stick not being like super great. I'm speaking of the C-Stick, I'm talking about the new Nintendo 3DS's C-Stick. There's obviously the C-Stick on the Circle Pad Pro, which I think actually is decent. But that's probably the best way to play this game, honestly, is using an actual full-size Circle Pad Pro, I'd imagine. But I don't have one here, or a well, actually, I do have an original Nintendo 3DS XL, but I don't have a Circle Pad Pro, unfortunately, to test that out. So then basically, this ship comes in for extraction. You all gather on the ship. I don't remember if it happens on this level. Looks like it. Oh, actually, not exactly. Space pirates typically show up at some point when you're trying to extract. Not always. In this case, it's a big old boy is what we got here instead. I don't know what this thing's called. Ice Titan. That's what it's called, apparently. So I think how this works is we get to shoot it from behind, although it looks like it deals damage otherwise. I'm just going to shoot my super missile. Use some of these flame shots. Get some points for burning them. Oh, I just shot. Oh no, that sound is my thing going or working where I get a free shot from these special shots I have here. Cool, and we did it. And now they're gonna come extract us. Can you get crushed? Try to get crushed. Crush me. Okay, there it is. Y'all gotta get on the extractor together. Whoop. And away we go. And that's kind of the flow of all these missions, like structurally. It's pretty much go down, go through a level, and then come back out, and then extract. In this case here, you can see the total points we have. There's also additional objectives. So you get, you know, bonuses based off some of the objectives you did. In that case, I got like a bonus because I didn't use some like solo player buff. I think we missed all these objectives, it sounds like. So, unfortunately, we did okay. But I already have those 2 medals, but if you would have got them, then it would have appeared there. In multiplayer, you can basically each choose to select the mod you want to take based off whoever got the highest score overall. And then yeah, and that's it. So I'm gonna do another mission because it has some interesting mechanical changes to how you play a little bit. I think it looks like it's mission 6 I have written down here. Glad I wrote it down because I would not have remembered otherwise. So we'll go ahead and go to, that's 7. There's basically 3 different planets, so each planet has like their own theme. So these are all ice planets. I think this is lava/desert, and this is like acid kind of. Number 6, infiltration. Excuse me. Alrighty. So this mission's a little different. We're gonna start off. I'm just gonna skip this cutscene if I can. I forgot how to do it. That's it. There we go. Now let's get all our stuff here. Let's bring a full set of drones. Oh, so in this case we actually hit our weight limit, so we gotta actually make some choices on what we want to bring with us. So I'm actually gonna. Oh, we'll do that. We got 3 drones with us. The drones are again something that's specific to if players are missing. So if you have 3 players, I think you know, 1 player can bring a drone with them. If you have 2 players, each player can bring 1 drone with them. And they're just going at it. So we'll see. Maybe they'll destroy everything. But the point of this mission actually is kind of separate from the typical or shooter portion of the game. So just go through. I'm just gonna ignore some of this stuff. Oh, whoops! I didn't mean to do that, but we shot it. Should have saved that for the mission, but that's okay. So once we get down here, we're actually going to dismount our little mech man. Yeah. This is only at specific points in the game that you can do this little dismounting thing. Basically, you need these stations to be available. Otherwise, you can't do this like freely. Although I think it's silly. I think when I was playing with my friend that get right in there. When I was playing with my friend, you can get in the other players' robots or whatever, so you can like take their stuff. Okay, so basically the point. So when you're in this mode, you're just your little person. You only have a couple of moves available to you. You have a side hop, and then the ability to jump, and that's kind of it. So it's all very stealth focused. So you know, this space pirate, we can't really do anything against him. So the point is to hide from him. So once he starts turning around, we're gonna drop down. And we're gonna go hide in this little hole here. And we go. Get on that jump pad. All right. So I think there's a guy down here. Yeah. Oh no, I think he saw me. Oh! That hurt. All right. Are we okay? I don't think we are. Maybe we are? I don't know. We're gonna go for it. Ah! Alright, we're good. Okay, use your button to get past here. I think I gotta stand there longer. There we go. Usually when you're in this form, I think there's only like 1 or 2 levels. There's definitely a second level with this. I don't know if there's any more than that. But when you're in this form... okay, there's a quick turnaround. It's usually very platforming focused, stealth and platforming, but it doesn't happen often enough that I think it's really a problem. You know, if you're not super into these mechanics, I will say this feels pretty stiff in how you are kind of moving around this environment. You don't really want to turn too much; you just kind of want to stay facing forward. But it works for what they're asking for you. It's usually a lot of very specific straightaways, like in this case. It's not like they're asking you to do some Mario, platforming level attempts with these kind of like tankish controls. Still, you're still very much kind of feels like a first-person shooter in some ways. All right, and then we get out of here. Skip. All right. So you can kind of see the structure of the missions of this game. Very much just kind of go in, do the thing, get out. In this case, we have a timer. So in closing, I guess, with this game, because we're going to kind of come up here and we're going to kind of wrap up some combat. But I think this game is perfectly fine in a lot of ways. I don't think there's anything bad about it. I really question if it really does anything that feels unique. I mean, it's definitely it definitely feels and plays like a Metroid Prime, and I don't think there are too many games that feel that way. It's very, very lock-on focused in terms of like how the shooting mechanics work and things like that. So it's like less precision than your typical shooter or something like that. I remember the big old debate back in the day about Metroid Prime being a first-person adventure versus a shooter. However you feel about that. So I do think it has a unique feel to it, and it definitely has all the Metroid elements in it that you would expect. In terms of at least the Prime games, but you don't really get as much as the exploration part of it. There's not a lot of exploration in this game. It's very linear. very specific to where you're going. But I think it's good fun. You know, if you have friends who have a 3DS and are into like if you have people that you could play with, I guess is all I'm saying, is that I think it's perfectly fine to play this game. Like, but you know, if you don't play this game, you're not really missing out on much. I'm trying to think if this game does anything particularly unique, but I think it really just is, you know, a co-op shooter for the most part. There's not a lot to it, but with the Metroid flavor. So if you do like the Metroid Prime games, I do think this is fitting. So it is very much like a if you're into kind of more less precision-based shooting and more with I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, like strategic-based shooting in some ways, like not so much the original Prime game actually, but like in terms of like getting the points and stuff in this game, it definitely requires you to be very specific about what weapons you're using on what enemies and things like that. Well, put a mine down, but we got out of it. Oops. Got him. I do really like the lock-on and the ability to kind of move the reticular around while you're locked on. I think that came in the Metroid Prime Wii remake, so I guess it's from Metroid Prime 3, and then it made its way into the remakes and stuff like that came out on the Wii of the first two games. And I think for this game, this game is definitely more of an action shooter kind of a thing than like a slower paced game like Metroid Prime. At least one. I haven't played the other two Metroid Prime games to say, but I believe that's probably the case of those as well. I'm gonna put some mines down here. Oh, we got a big guy. We are running low on mines though. Alright, we are out of mines. Sometimes though you do want to like take damage to kind of maximize your points, or at least like maybe not take damage, but use all your healing items, things like that, because you do get points for doing that stuff. So it is good to, you know, actively use these resources rather than just hoard them all the time. Because I have a bunch of healing kits still, and you know, not much time left on this encounter, I think. Alrighty. That's going to be it. Thanks for coming. OneControllerPort.com is the website. If you're here the week this goes up, there's a Castlevania 64 video up. So please go check that out. Review, I guess. I hate calling them reviews, but that's kind of what they are in some ways. Otherwise, OneControllerPort.com has podcasts, a weekly stream, a weekly podcast as well. And then I try to do articles, but they don't always. There are definitely article droughts because it takes a lot of time to do those, and they're probably the most unsuccessful of the content on the website. But I like writing, so I still do it when I can. Because this is all for fun, because I don't make any money from this. But yeah, I hope you like it. Or yeah, if you check out OneControllerPort.com, hope you like it, and then hope you have a great week. Thank you. Bye.